This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 244 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today is the classic tales of things going wrong, in particular related to transport. So the title of this episode is Transport Glitches. We've got tales of missed flight connections, missed ferries, and more of these kinds of transport-related disasters. And we will learn that sometimes they have silver linings, and pretty much all the time they make a great story. And I think even when stuff's going wrong on my travels, I'm already always thinking, oh, well, this will be a good story to tell. It's boring if everything goes right. There's nothing to tell when you get back home. I must say, though, touch wood really hard. I've never really had any terrible like missed flights or really, disastrous flight connections or delays or anything. I think the worst I can remember is when I was living in Bratislava and I had to fly back to Vienna airport from Tunisia, but I feel like we went via Frankfurt to Vienna, and it was December or early January perhaps by then. And there was a lot of snow, and I think that delayed my flight from Frankfurt to Vienna. I think that's what happened. In any case, I arrived in Vienna, 4 or 5 hours later than planned, which wasn't good because it meant we were there from, midnight or 1 a.m. or something, and the bus service back to Bratislava was finished for the day and wouldn't start again until 6 a.m. or something. So I remember spending a surprisingly comfortable night on a bench in a McDonald's restaurant in the airport, because that was all there was, and managed to stretch out there. Thankfully, they had benches and not just chairs, and that was kind of okay. And I remember being woken up by the cleaners to say, get out, we're cleaning, sometime, very early in the morning, and then, caught the bus back to Bratislava eventually. So, yeah, if that's the worst that happens to me, I'm very happy, because in today's episode there are a few more tricky glitches, but they often do have a silver lining, and, let's hear about them. So my first guest is Kaitlyn Jain, and Kaitlyn travels with her 4 kids, and, that just adds a degree of difficulty when things go wrong, like it did on this example when they had just arrived in Finland and thought they'd take a day trip over to Estonia.
So I will say that I am a person that tries to find the positive. And so I try to, and husband, it kind of drives him crazy, I'm sure. But, when something bad happens, I try my best to look at the positive. And so something bad that happened to us when we were traveling is actually when we went to Estonia. And so my husband was running a marathon the next day. And so I said, we'll do Estonia this day, even though we're going to be jet lagged, even though we're going to be tired. And clearly, when I say all these things, you're like, why would you have done this? So we had our alarm set, hear the alarm going off, probably 20 minutes after it's going off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to get on the ferry right now. So I'm like rushing all my kids out the door. I have 4 children. And at the time they were, 6, 4, 7, 5, 3, and 1. We're rushing out the door. I'm rushing to get the free breakfast. And we had like 20 minutes to get to this ferry from when we woke up, and trying to get everyone out the door. You're counting the heads, just making sure you have everybody. And we rush to the door. We get the taxi there, and they're like, I'm sorry, you have to get here half an hour early. And it was like 25 minutes early. And, it was just like disappointment.
Oh no. So the ferry's sitting there, but you
Absolutely.
Couldn't. Oh no.
And I see it and I'm like, but we're here. And can we get on? And they're like, nope, you can't get on. It's too late.
And you've got 4 little kids with you, so they could understand probably that it's not easy to organise that to get you all there.
And they were very, very pleasant. No. But, I had gotten...
Yeah, but that was the rule was the rule.
The rule, especially in Finland. So, I feel like you go to some South American countries, they might be like, oh, yeah, go ahead, or India or whatever, but not there. Nope, very strict. And so I had gotten the free breakfast, like carry out from the hotel. So we're sitting in the lobby of the Helsinki ferry company, and we're eating pancakes and chocolate croissants out of like carry-out containers. And the next ferry doesn't leave for maybe 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. And so I'm like, okay, so what can we do for 3 or 4 hours? And so I'm thinking through our itinerary for the rest of the days we're there. And so my son, he was 3. I said he'd love to go on the trolley. So we hop on the trolley and we take the trolley around Helsinki. And we go to the amusement park. And I'm like, okay, we were going to go to the amusement park on Friday. Let's go there. And so we show up at the amusement park. And the amusement park looks awesome. Like all the rides are free for children of a certain age. And, you know, I've got 4 kids, so, you know, great. Unfortunately, it's not open on a Tuesday or whatever day that we were there. So
oh, no.
I get the kids all excited. We show up at this amusement park and it's closed. So I'm like, okay. So we hop back on the trolley and we're just riding around Helsinki for 3 hours looking for something to do. I'm like, okay, let's go to Olympic Stadium. And we get to the Olympic Stadium and it's closed for construction. And it's like every single thing is like this.
Oh, no.
And so I was, you know, we're there and we woke up. We didn't get a good night's sleep because it's our first day there. And it's like, why are we here? You know, and we don't have the stroller because I didn't want the stroller for Estonia. So the kids all have to walk. And it was just, you know, we get on the wrong trolley. And then I'm like looking at my watch going, oh my gosh, we're going to miss the second ferry. And so we're rushing and it was just absolutely crazy. And so, as I said, you know, it was a huge disappointment. But at the time,
yes, several disappointments.
So many disappointments, at least 3 or 4 disappointments. And then someone gets on and then the ticket checkers get on, and I don't know if I bought the right ticket, you know, and I'm showing them the tickets, and thankfully I was okay, but some other guy was not. And so then they're like interrogating him. I'm like, are they going to slow us down so much that we're going to miss the second ferry?
No,
so it was just absolutely terrible. But then, as I said, I try to look at the bright side. And so riding the the trolley around Helsinki, we got to see like what Helsinkians do during the day. And I cannot tell you, I've never seen so many babies in my life and so many fathers with their babies. And so it was just amazing. And I was chatting with some man, and he said that you can travel for free on the trolley in Helsinki if you have a stroller with you. So this man was traveling free because he had his son in the stroller, and the son was like 10 months old. It wasn't like a newborn baby, but he said he was on paternity leave and he got to ride the trolley for free. And it was, and so finally we get on this.
That's very cool.
Finally we get on the ferry, and we made it by like 10 minutes, you know, and they were like escorting us on the last few people. And thankfully, I had reserved a room so that my daughter could take a nap. And she was 1 at the time, and I was like, she's not going to make it through the whole day. And then my 5-year-old, she took a nap as well, and I took a nap because, you know, I'm the mom. And I need a nap.
Yeah, you deserve it.
We had a nice 2-hour nap, and it's the first and only time I've paid for a nap, but it was completely worth it. And then by the time we got to Estonia, it was fantastic. And, you know, I do... It was fantastic to do what we did, and I don't regret it. Just would have set the alarm for, 20 minutes earlier if I had done it again. I mean, like I said, like part of the reason that we travel is for the memories and the experiences. And if it had gone according to plan, I wouldn't be sharing it with you.
I think Kaitlyn really is a glass half full person, because I know what it's like to travel with kids of that age. Well, no, I don't. I know what it's like to travel with one kid of that age, or occasionally with friends with maybe 2. But 4 young kids, I think she must have glossed over some of the tantrums or issues that would have occurred on a day like that. So, but good on her, and exactly right. It becomes something that everyone remembers, and they ended up having a great time. Now, my next guest today is Vince Dickson, and he is actually sharing a story, something that happened to a friend of his who was flying, and, well, everything went wrong the whole trip home. It was crazy, but makes for a good story.
I had a friend who's, he was coming, I was in South Africa at the time, he was coming out to visit. He was from New York, I'm sure I'll get a few of these facts fudged, but I'll try and get it as smooth as possible. He was coming from New York, and he's French, so he's coming via Europe, and he was coming to visit me in South Africa. So he flew from New York via Heathrow, I think, to France first of all. He ended up, and I'm trying to think of the reason now, he ended up stuck in Heathrow due to flight cancellations. I feel like it was a weather thing. I remember that the Iceland volcano causing issues years ago, and I don't, but it wasn't then. It was something more recent, and I'm trying to remember why. But there was huge chaos in Heathrow. He ended up stuck sitting in the terminal in Heathrow for 2 days, trying to get a rebooked flight. And there was just the whole airport was full. I remember him sending us things. Eventually, he got out of there. And he got eventually to Doha. So there's the common route to go from Europe to South Africa is via with Qatar Airways via Doha. He ended up in Doha, and he went to catch his connection. It was a very easy connection. Went to catch it, showed them his passport, and they said, there's not enough days left on your passport, so we can't let you fly.
Oh, no.
So I think actually the South African government, the border would have let him in, but the airline wasn't letting him on. And he had the reason he had the situation was he'd recently applied for a new visa, and he actually had 2 passports. The one was his old one, and he had given his new passport in for a new, I think it was a US visa, but either way it was with an embassy. Very long story. A friend ended up picking up his passport in New York, his new passport, and that friend is also South African, ended up back in South Africa with his new passport. So he was now sitting in Doha in the airport. Wasn't allowed on the plane. They told him, so really you need your new passport. Also, you're not allowed to leave the airport because we can't give you a visa into Doha. So you have to stay in the airport. But also, it's illegal for you to be in the airport for more than 48 hours. And I might have the time, whatever the time frame was. It was like 48 hours or 36 hours. Or
right.
But basically, he was in this, it was almost out of that movie, The Terminal.
Yeah.
There was no option. He was like, well, you're not going to let me leave the airport. You won't let me get on the plane, but you're also saying I can't legally stay in the airport. So, so what ended up happening is he tried, because the flight goes back and forth between Doha and Cape Town. It was essentially exactly the same plane was coming from Cape Town to Doha. Then he'd get on it and go back to Cape Town. Mm-hmm. So he was trying to get them. He basically spoke to them and said, well, if I get my friend to drop the passport at the airport, can the crew just bring it and just give it to you at the date? It's like, no, they wouldn't let that happen because it's illegal. It's against their rules for crew to have the passport. So what ended up happening was he actually paid for the friend who had the passport to get on a plane with his passport. It ended up being the only option.
Oh, no.
Fly there, meet him, give him the passport, and both of them got on that exact same plane and flew back again. After I spent 2 days just sitting in airports. Right after he just spent 2 days in Heathrow. Yeah, it was it was a story. I remember thinking it was if you wrote a movie about it, it would this is too far fetched.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that poor man. That's awful.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. And it was great. Once he landed, they'd lost his luggage as well.
No.
So so he got there.
Insult to injury.
Yeah, it was just.
Oh, gosh. Oh, you always hear about these things happening, but you don't really think it's going to happen to anyone you actually know. It seems like a movie.
Yeah, you're always like, oh, it won't happen to me. And then when it does, you're like, I'm the statistic today.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had my luggage lost permanently, so I...
How have you?
Yes.
Completely gone?
Completely gone, never to be seen ever again. So, but
that's horrible.
That was horrible. I mean, it could have been worse. It was on a flight home, so it was not inconvenient. But and I didn't have anything super valuable in there. But nonetheless, it was my favourite backpack that I'd backpacked all around the world with for a decade, and all the memories, and my favourite pair of sandals and stuff like that. So yeah, it was still not fun, but it could have been much worse.
There's always that moment on the conveyor belt when your bag finally drops, and you're like, there's always a sense of relief every time.
Every time,
no matter times you do it, you're like,
yeah, and especially once you've lost it once forever, then you really are relieved every time. Well, I am glad it wasn't me having that kind of a palaver of a flight home, or a flight from New York to South Africa. I know it's a fair distance, but Vince's friend really made that into a massive marathon. Well, he didn't make it; circumstances did. So, what a palaver! But he got there. Maybe his luggage didn't, but he did eventually. Now, my final guest today is Deborah Hale and her son, Jonah. And we chatted about all kinds of travels that they've had. And we got to talking about a time when they'd had problems with their flights and misconnections and stuff. And they ended up accidentally in Dubai overnight. But it definitely didn't really put them off their game, and they still managed to have a really, really incredible experience.
It's true, because I think like that. I guess that Dubai experience actually, like I said, we had no plans on spending the night there, but I was like, okay, it's fine. We're in Dubai. I just need to find somewhere where I can get Wi-Fi. I book us a hotel. I was like, okay, let's just do that. So then he was like, okay, let's go, and then we went to the Gold District and bought some, I wanted a ring. So I got a ring, and
cool.
We literally just went with the flow and enjoyed it. And then we got some food, and then he was like, oh, I have to use the I have to use the restroom. Yeah. Can I go? Yeah. And then we end up getting a hotel. We end up going to a hotel nearby, and it was a really nice hotel. I couldn't book anything on my phone. So then we just went and asked them for a room for a night. They're like, yeah, there's something available. We got it. And then he ate, we took a nice shower, and then we realized that my cousin lives there, actually. He's recently moved there.
No way.
And we didn't know that he recently moved there. Yeah. And then we said, hey, we're in town. Do you want to meet us for dinner? And then he's like, yeah, absolutely. And it was like my birthday. And so he took us to this really nice restaurant where you can see the what is that? That Khalifa building?
Burj Khalifa. The Burj Khalifa,
right next to it. So you're like,
wow.
It's a rooftop, and you're right next to it. And had this, and Jonah was just in heaven.
I bet.
I was too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yes, and we ended up just having such a great time. Because it was my birthday, and my cousin told the guys there it's her birthday, so they brought cake and they brought drums, and they started playing like some music.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and then you played the drums too. So they let Jonah play the
do. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, and it's like I said, memorable experiences. If we didn't have that, that experience with that flight, we wouldn't have had that opportunity, right? And he adapted so well, and he was ready to go. So, and he enjoyed. He was like, "Wow, we should stay another day." And I was like, "No, I got to go to work."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's fabulous, though, isn't it? Amazing. It's often when things go wrong or things don't go according to plan that we have the best experiences, and I can just tell because you both light up when you describe it that it was just that spontaneous fun. So yeah,
we really enjoyed that trip, and I think Dubai continues to be one of his favorite cities still.
So there you go. Sometimes transport glitches are just meant to be, and they turn into a fabulous bonus night with your cousin who's just moved to Dubai. I think that's just a gorgeous story, especially since it happened to be Deborah's birthday. What a perfect situation. So maybe I won't be so concerned about future flight cancellations. One day when I do get to go on a flight abroad again. But well, one day. Who knows? All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to episode 244 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. I hope you have not had too many transport glitches of your own, but they do make good stories and I would love to hear them. So if you've got your own transport glitch story to share, hop over to the Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers and share it with us. We might, all enjoy it together, or maybe get a laugh even sometimes. You can find the Facebook group through the link in the show notes, or just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook and you should find it there. A huge thanks to my 4 guests today. First up, I chatted with Kaitlyn Jain. And Kaitlyn's written a book called Passports and Pacifiers, Travelling the World, One Tantrum at a Time. See, I knew there were tantrums involved, especially, 4 young kids, there's going to be tantrums. So you can find more about that at kaitlynjain.com. That's KAITLYNJAIN. So thanks for that, Kaitlyn. Next up, I chatted with Vince Dickson, and he's from Hunu, where they make sustainable travel products. One of their first big product is their pocket-sized keep cup, and you can find him at wearehunu.com. That's HUNU. I then chatted with Deborah Hale and her gorgeous son, Jonah. They have a website at tinyglobalfootprints.com, and they have written several books together about their trips for kids, and they just look gorgeous. And I've got more to share from their interview in the future, including some great travel tips from Jonah as well. All of this information and more is all at the show notes, and you can find the show notes for this episode at notaballerina.com/244. So I hope you continue to travel when you can safely and glitch-free with your transport as well. And other than that, thank you very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.